Welcome to the latest edition of Hutchinson Economic Developments. My name is Miles Seppold. I'm the Economic Development Director for the city. In this episode, we're going to have some updates for you on current economic development happenings, and we'll talk in our second segment about business incubation and the Hutchinson Enterprise Center and what we're doing out in the industrial park. So for the updates, probably the biggest thing on the list would be the Jorgensen Hotel. This has been a project that we've been working on for years, and it's been a long and winding road. And I think the thing to say with this is that redevelopment is hard, and this one's a hard one. This project's still moving forward. Right now there's a purchase agreement in place for the purchase of the Cook Jewelry Building, and that's supposed to close on December 12th. And then a few days before that, on December 9th, we'll be at City Council. We have to do what's called the Business Subsidies Public Hearing, and then we have to adjust a little bit of the amount of the public assistance that we're providing for this project. And I'll talk more about that in a future episode. So hopefully by mid-December, everything's going to be in place on this project, and then demolition will take place towards the end of December and then probably throughout January. And that's assuming everything comes together. So we'll find out. The landing, that project is moving right ahead. So those guys are going to be building that structure all the way through the winter, nonstop. And so right now where they're at, they have all the footings in the ground. The footings and foundations are in, and they're just in the process now of putting in wall sections that are what will be in the future is going to be the parking garage. So the project's on schedule, and I would say probably September or October, this apartment complex should be open and ready for rentals. So we'll see. It'll be fun to see how this goes over the winter. One note on this project too, and I only bring it up because, I hear questions about the rents for this project and why they are what they are, and shouldn't there be more low rents and lower rent projects and so forth. So because public assistance is part of the landing apartment project, 20% of the units, or 16 out of the 81 units, are set aside for tenants with incomes at or below 50% of area median income. So really this project is for all income levels. It's not just high income apartments. A certain number are set aside for folks with low income. And then along with that too, I just wanted to kind of reinforce the fact that we're adding 81 apartment units to the mix here in Hutchinson. And when you add to the supply, that helps control the cost. Because what's going to happen is that people in medium cost apartments are going to move up to the landing. That's going to create openings at that mid price level. And then similarly, folks at lower cost apartments are going to move up to the mid level. So that's going to open up additional apartments at the lower cost point. So really the project's going to benefit all people at all income levels, and we're going to increase the supply of apartments here in Hutchinson. So I think the project is moving ahead on schedule, and like I said, open in September or October. One other item I wanted to chat about was the community smartphone application. This is for your smartphone, and if you just go to the App Store on your smartphone, search for Much and Hutch at the App Store, and you can download it for free. This is really kind of the ultimate one-stop shop for all things Hutchinson, because it's going to have a whole bunch of retail stores are going to be on this site, with the hours, specials, sales, all that stuff is going to be pushed through this app. And then in addition, there'll be information about dining, specials, probably links to the websites and menus. I know at some point the city's going to start pushing notifications through the Much and Hutch app. The school district will be pushing notifications through the app as well. It'll have movie times. It's really going to be everything Hutchinson all in one location. So you'll never really need to look up a website for a store or a restaurant or anything like that again. You can just go to the Much and Hutch app, and everything will be right there. So I encourage everyone to download the Much and Hutch app at the App Store and give it a try. I think you'll be really impressed. One new project that we're working on at the Economic Development Authority is I brought in a new intern. Her name is Jocelyn Christensen, and she's a junior in high school, and she is going to be our Women in the Workforce intern. And we have a number of goals we're trying to attain with this internship. Probably first and foremost is we just want to build Jocelyn up as a leader. We need more female leaders. If you were to look just kind of not only community-wide, but really statewide and nationwide, only 30% of the leadership positions are filled by women. And that's a tremendous opportunity for us to bring more talent to the table to help us in all these different leadership positions. We need those talents. And so we want to encourage more women to go into leadership and literally build female leaders. So that's what we're doing with this internship. So, and then a big part of Jocelyn's job too is to encourage and recruit young ladies to take more career and technical education classes. So that would be like the building trades, like to be an electrician or a plumber or an HVAC specialist or a welder or a machinist or whatever. The reality is that we still have a major skilled workforce shortage, not only in the community, but statewide and nationwide. And women can come in and take these jobs. And they're good, high-paying jobs, they're good careers. And so we want to encourage more females to go in this direction, and that's where Jocelyn's going to hopefully be helping us over the next school year. The next thing is the Downtown Association. So we did have a board meeting this past Monday, and a new board of directors has been elected for the Downtown Association. And now that group will go forward, and they're tasked with promoting downtown Hutchinson and getting more people to visit downtown. So they'll be kind of focusing their efforts on events and activities that would lure more folks into the downtown area. Big news item is on our new daycare center, the Guiding Light Early Learning Center. I just found out today, in fact, that they got their license from the state, so now they're licensed and they're ready to open any day. It's really just a matter of getting kids signed up and they're off and running. So this new daycare center, that's going to create 42 new slots for daycare in Hutchinson. It'll be 28 preschool and 14 school age. Probably the best thing I can recommend would be to go on Facebook and just search for Guiding Light Early Learning Center. They would have all the information there, contact information and their website, so that you can sign up the kids if you're looking for a daycare slot. So Guiding Light Early Learning Daycare should be open almost any day now, open in December for sure. Finally, the last update I have is on the State Theater. The Economic Development Authority last week, we approved some grant funding for the theater, and they're going to be making some improvements to their signage out front. So probably the biggest thing is they got to repair some neon signs, and then they're going to recharge that neon so it'll actually be glowing brighter in the future. So it'll really be quite a sight. And then they're going to be restoring another sign underneath the canopy, and then adding covers to kind of protect those neon bulbs. So a couple improvements at the State Theater that'll be coming up over the next few months. So that's the update in terms of economic development happenings in Hutchinson. In the next segment, we'll talk a little bit about business incubation and the Hutchinson Enterprise Center. Welcome back to Hutchinson Economic Developments. In the second segment, we're going to talk about business incubation and the Hutchinson Enterprise Center. So we're going to look at 4 questions. Basically, well, what is business incubation? What does that mean? Why do we do it? How do we do it? And then probably the most important question is, does it work? Is it really working here in Hutchinson? So first question is, what is business incubation? Basically, it's just referring to the process of nurturing a new company from initial idea to a sustainable business. There's lots of people out there that have a clever idea for a business, but don't know where to begin or how to take the steps to turn it into an actual business. So that's where incubation comes in, as we kind of provide the guidance to help people turn ideas into really effective, successful businesses. Business incubation, it's got a number of features to it, and these really kind of help describe what it is. So a core part of, there's really two key pieces to business incubation. One is education, business education, to help people learn actual business. And then the second is to put them into an environment where they can save money. So it'd be a low cost facility that they might be in, because when businesses start out, money is the biggest concern, and you need to keep as much of that in the hopper as one possibly can. So other features of business incubation, it's a supportive environment, because starting a business, that's a hard, stressful thing. Networking opportunities, access to capital for these early stage companies, mentorship and guidance, that's a very important component, and then shared resources, which helps the company save on its expenses. So all those features together, they're really kind of the parts that make up business incubation. There's two types of business incubation. One's called virtual business incubation, and that's where we're using someone else's building. And an example of that would be Jumpstart Downtown, where we're using an existing building downtown. And then there's physical incubation. That's where the Hutchinson enterprise comes in, because we actually have a physical facility that people can set up business in. So the question becomes next now, why do we do this? Why do we incubate businesses? So first and foremost, it's just a core strategy to help us grow our economy here in Hutchinson. It turns out that, you know, in economic development, if you're trying to recruit companies to come from the outside and expand in your town, that's really hard. It's very time consuming, it's very expensive, and it's not super successful. It's a low batting average. But if you do business incubation, that's where you're leveraging the people and the talent and the resources in your own community to promote entrepreneurship and grow the local economy just sort of organically. So it's kind of homegrown economic development. One big reason why we incubate businesses is to help businesses survive. The reality is, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that when a business starts up, you know, by the 5th year, half of the businesses that start up are no longer going to be operating. The mortality rate is 50% by year 5. But you put them into an incubation environment, and then that survival rate jumps from 50% all the way up to 87%. So it's a big swing, and it plays a really big role in helping these young early stage companies survive. There's really two key reasons why businesses fail. It's lack of know-how and lack of capital. And many times people will launch into a business without really knowing the business side of it. And they might not have the experience that they need to be successful. So poor preparation and just not properly planning really handicaps them. And then the other reason why businesses fail so much is lack of capital. They go into it not realizing how much money is needed to be successful. Really, when you start a business, you have to be thinking in terms of 6, 9, 12 months before you see a profit. So you need to have capital on hand to see you all the way through until the profits start rolling in. The good news is that business incubation really addresses both of those issues, right? We provide the know-how, and then we help these companies manage their capital so that they can be more successful. So the next question is, how do you incubate a business? What does that entail? First, I would say that, you know, for us here in Hutchinson, we really learned about this from some folks over in Wisconsin, the Northwest Regional Planning Commission. They run a whole family of incubators throughout northwestern Wisconsin. So we learned about what they were doing and how they were doing it, and we thought, well, we can copy that, we can do that in Hutchinson. So that's where the idea came from. And the secret components, the real central pieces to it, education is the biggest part. You know, a person might know how to be an electrician, for example, and be a really good electrician, but that doesn't mean that they know the business side of it. And so that's where incubation comes in. Here in Hutchinson, we partner with the Small Business Development Center, frequently referred to as the SBDC, and they provide a lot of training and coaching, mentoring, and it's all at no cost to the business. So it's just a terrific resource, and I think, in my opinion, every business should get connected to the SBDC, whether it's a startup or an early stage or even a mature going concern, because everybody's got things to learn, everybody can improve, and that's where the SBDC can really come in and add a lot of value. For us here in Hutchinson, the other secret really to our incubation program is just the layout of our building. It's very long and very narrow. It's 250 feet long and only 80 feet wide, but that allows us to configure it so that we can create these bays for businesses that are 4,000 square feet in size. They're 80 feet by 50 feet. And the beauty of it is that we can adjust the size as needed. The walls that separate them are just temporary walls. Those can be taken down and put up in a day or 2 days, and so you can go from a 4,000 square foot bay to a 6,000 square foot bay really just in a couple days. And that flexibility is a huge asset to us as we're helping these companies grow and mature. So here's a picture of just what the building looks like when it's empty. It's just big open space. And then on those beams that you see going across the top, that's where we put up temporary walls to divide it into these bays for individual businesses. How do we do it? Well, we do, like I said earlier, we do virtual business incubation here in Hutchinson, and for us that's called Jumpstart Downtown. And that's where we're using an existing Main Street building and helping somebody start a retail type business on Main Street. That's the goal. And so for this one, it's fairly simple. It's really just a 3-round contest. It's a business plan contest. That first round, we just want somebody to give us 1 page and explain the name of the business, 1 or 2 sentences to help us understand what it is, and then maybe a paragraph which would sort of explain the market opportunity. So we'll get all these submissions in, and then the Economic Development Authority will sort through them, and we divide them into 2 piles. So one pile will invite to submit a business plan, the other pile will say, okay, more work required. So round 2 then is where the applicant would put in a full-fledged 30-page business plan. And for this, they would partner with the Small Business Development Center or Southwest Initiative Foundation, because they're really the experts at helping people frame up the business plan. So we'll get the business plans in, and again, we'll sort through them, we'll read through them, and sort them into a pile that we think has a lot of promise, and the other pile needs more work. But the ones that we think are really exciting, we'll invite to the 3rd round of our contest. That's where the applicant would come in and do a presentation about their proposed business and then answer questions from the selection board. So through that process then, that's how we would pick a winner with Jumpstart Downtown. And in Jumpstart Downtown, you know, it's kind of a full package of resources that the businesses can use to get started. You know, there's a cash prize to provide working capital. The SBDC is in there to provide coaching and training and mentoring. There might be a web page that would come into it, some free advertising. So it's really a full package to help someone launch their retail business. We don't do Jumpstart Downtown very often. We kind of hold that in reserve until there's a lot of vacancies on Main Street. As of today, here in 2025, Main Street's pretty full. So it might be a while before we use Jumpstart Downtown again, but we'll see what happens. The other type that we do here in Hutchinson is physical business incubation. That's the Hutchinson Enterprise Center. That's a 20,000 square foot physical building in the industrial park. The application process is pretty similar to Jumpstart. There's an online written application that we have people fill out, and then they have to submit a business plan. And we'll review that, and if it makes sense to us, we'll bring the applicant in for a personal interview, because we're trying to find out what kind of people are they? Are they people that are willing to learn, that are willing to be coached and mentored and grow as they're building their business? Because that's really what we're looking for, is the people that want to learn. And then the final step is they'll come in and do a presentation to the board of the Economic Development Authority, and then we'll ask a bunch of questions and so on and so forth. And then from that, we'll decide if we think they have what it takes, and invite them to come into the Enterprise Center. A couple key points about business incubation. One, it's a long-term strategy. It just takes a long time for businesses to get on their feet and really succeed. So companies might be in the Enterprise Center for 3, 4, 5, 6 years sometimes. It just depends. It's just a lot of work and time-consuming process to build a business. And so we got to give them enough time to let that process unfold. The other key point with business incubation is that success varies, right? No matter how hard we try, some of them are just not going to make it. And that's just the reality of it. And then for others, the success might be moderate or it might be significant. And for 1 or 2 of our companies that we'll work with, those potentially could be home run projects, and they could turn into a company that gets to be pretty good size and builds its own building in the industrial park and really goes to the next level. So I think it's just important to remember that with anything, success varies, and we just have to accept that. That's just part of incubation. The bottom line is that it does really work. The outfit that we learned about it from, Northwest Regional Planning Commission, they've got 10 incubators sprinkled around northwestern Wisconsin, and they've graduated over 40 companies. And so as a way to build companies, to create new jobs, it really works. There's a documented history of success. And here in Hutchinson, our goal is just to follow that recipe as closely as we can, and hopefully we'll have similar success. A key question that comes up, people ask, are we competing with people that own buildings and lease them out? And the answer to that would be no, because we're not renting space, we're incubating companies. And there's a real difference. If somebody wants to just rent space, I will call somebody that I know owns a building and we'll connect them to this individual, because we're not renting space. We want companies that want to grow, that might start out with 1 or 2 employees, but are going to be 4, 5, 6 employees and 10 employees and 20 employees, because at the end of the day, for us, it's about job creation. So we're really not competing with private leasing. That's a different thing. We do send customers to these folks that are leasing out building space, so that's the win-win there. With the Enterprise Center, we've got admission criteria that we're pretty strict about. One, the company, whatever it is, it needs to be some form of manufacturing. It needs to be making something into something else. And then it's got to be some kind of a product that gets packaged up and shipped out. And then finally, it's got to be the type of company that's going to need more physical space as the company itself grows. So we're pretty strict about that. The final question now is incubation. Is it working? Are we having some success? And I can say without a doubt that we have absolutely been notching some wins. With Jumpstart Downtown, we had Elena's Bakery. That was one that went through the Jumpstart program, and Elena had her bakery on Main Street for 5 years, and that was a big win. In that same contest, we had a second winner, which was Meshed Designs. And these 2 businesses were actually on the same block, just 2 doors down from each other. So we've got a couple of really good wins. One business that's out there now is the Flank Steakhouse. That was a Jumpstart contestant at one time, and Vince and Amanda now have their restaurant out on Highway 7. That's still rolling along. So we've had a few wins with Jumpstart Downtown. And then in the industrial park, in the Enterprise Center, we've had a few wins there as well. Right now at the Enterprise Center, we've got 2 clients. One is called Laser Dynamics, and they do laser engraving and laser marking. They do a lot of stuff with medical devices, so that's pretty exciting stuff. And then our other company, the new company, is Smoky Duke's Pretzels. And you can buy these at Cashwise here in town and a couple other places. So that's a brother-sister team that launched this, and so far it's just going fantastic. And we just are super excited about this one, because this one has huge upside potential. I mean, this could be really pretty amazing company. So we'll see how it goes. Our wins, Innovative Foam was a company that we had in the Enterprise Center that graduated. They went out and bought their own building, and remodeled it, and currently they've got 4 or 5 employees and they're going strong. And then another win would be RD Machine. They had come to us wanting to use some space so that they could experiment with water jet cutting. And that experiment proved to be a big success, and that company did a massive expansion as a result. They went from 16,000 square feet to 37,000 square feet, and then remodeled their whole facility. Today it has 37 employees. So that one is a home run, really, and that company is going very strong. So that's a little bit about business incubation and the Hutchinson Enterprise Center. And I think that's pretty much it for this episode of Hutchinson Economic Developments. I'll be back in 2 weeks with some additional updates, and then we're going to talk about the Hutchinson Economic Development Authority and what it actually does. So we'll see you next time.